after U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken's statement that the U.S. is monitoring concerning scenario in India, including an increase in human rights abuses by some government, police, and prison authorities. Dr. S. Jaishankar, India's External Affairs Minister, responded strongly to the United States of America's criticism of India over alleged human rights abuses, saying that even New Delhi is concerned about human rights in the U.S. He added, "So, when human rights issues develop in this country, particularly when they touch our community, we must be vigilant." The External Affairs Minister was speaking to a hate crime that occurred in the United States few days ago when two Sikh men were attacked and robbed in a New York neighborhood. Responding to a question on India's decision to buy oil from Russia, India's External Affairs Minister, S. Jaishankar, informed the Western media that they should focus their attention on Europe. Dr. S. Jaishankar pointed out that India to buy some energy, which is necessary for its energy security. But looking at the figures, India's total purchases for the month will be less than what Europe does in an afternoon. Why does Joe Biden lack moral legitimacy to lecture people on human rights? Joe Biden served as vice president under Barack Obama, during whose presidency, the United States military presence in the world reached unparalleled heights. The U.S. military forces have been at war for all 8 years of Obama's tenure, the first two-term president with that distinction. Among all other, Obama campaigned on the promise of ending foreign conflicts, but after his victory, he did the exact opposite. By 2015, the United States had dropped so many bombs on the Middle East that it had ran out of bombs to drop. He launched airstrikes, or military raids, in at least 7 countries: Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, Libya, Yemen, Somalia and Pakistan. It was speculated that, by the end of his tenure, the USA was engaged in more countries militarily than when he took office. The failure to plan for the aftermath of the overthrow of Libyan leader Colonel Muammar Gaddafi, according to US President Barack Obama, was the worst mistake of his presidency. Libya was formerly one of Africa's wealthiest countries, with a wide range of social benefits, subsidized by oil exports. Its economy was admired throughout Africa and the Arab world. Libya had the highest Human Development Index, lowest infant mortality, and best life expectancy in Africa, prior to the US-led bombing operation in 2011. However, as a direct result of US meddling under Barack Obama, the failed state now has slave markets. Humans could be purchased for as little as $200. All of the worst-case possibilities have resulted from Western military intervention. Western embassies have all fled, and the country's south has become a shelter for ISIS militants. The country has converted from Africa's wealthiest democracy under Gaddafi to terrorist haven after US intervention. Anarchy has replaced democracy, as thugs and radicalized Islamic insurgents control the streets. Instead of respecting human rights, the country has been hit by a humanitarian crisis, as desperate people fled and flooded Europe and its neighboring territories. And, during the entire charade, Joe Biden faithfully served as vice president. The choice by the Obama administration to arm moderate Syrian rebels also resulted in predictable disasters. In 2017, it was claimed that advanced weapons handed to the rebels had ended up in the hands of ISIS. It's important to note that ISIS and the rebels were both fighting the same enemy, that is, Syria's Bashar al-Assad. In every sense, the Obama administration, which included Joe Biden as vice president, was a humanitarian disaster. As unbelievable as it may seem, but the US government has been unintentionally sponsoring charitable organizations tied to terrorist groups it is seeking abroad, doling out millions of cash without monitoring over the years. It's also no secret that the United States has financed Islamic terrorists around the world to achieve foreign policy objectives. It is also undeniable that their acts have resulted in the deaths of tens of thousands of people. Yemen is in the midst of a horrible humanitarian disaster created by Saudi Arabia, a longtime US partner. The External Affairs Minister of India said in a sharp response to US Secretary of State Antony Blinken's remarks about monitoring human rights issues in India that we, too, are entitled to have views about their lobbies and vote banks. He said, "We are not going to be hesitant. We have strong feelings about other people's human rights, particularly when it comes to our own community." It was a befitting reply by the External Affairs Minister. If President Biden has decided to use human rights as a weapon, India should do the same to protect its interests. With 18 million Indians residing outside of their motherland, India has the world's largest diaspora population. According to new data, the number of anti-Asian hate events, which can include shunning, slurs, and physical attacks, has increased over the past year. Women have been the target of a disproportionate number of attacks. According to the Indian American Attitudes Survey, 1 out of every 2 Indian Americans in the United States felt discriminated against in the past year. Researchers from Johns Hopkins University, the University of Pennsylvania, and the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace performed the poll, which concluded that skin color discrimination is the most common kind of prejudice. A US professor recently referred to India as a She also said that the Westerners have outgunned and outclassed the Asian Americans in every way. They feel anger and shame. It creates ingratitude of the most monstrous kind. The Indian American community is a significant one in the United States. There are around 4.2 million Indian Americans in the United States. So, it is necessary for India to establish international human rights mechanisms to monitor any violence directed not only at Indians, but also at Asians. India should embrace treaties and agreements at the regional and international levels to ensure the protection of human rights, such as the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination. The Indian government should collaborate with other governments in areas where there is a sizable Indian diaspora to create authentic databases on human rights violations. Because good data can help identify and validate issues, theories, and perceptions, such as perceptions of equal opportunity and treatment, institutional barriers to recruiting and hiring older people, factors encouraging and inhibiting student achievement, accessible services for people with mental illnesses, changing cultural and linguistic needs of patients, diverse leadership in the corporate sector, racial profiling in law enforcement, and the role of socioeconomic factors. Good data can help build trust, facilitate effective, respectful consultations, and gain the support of key decision-makers and stakeholders. As External Affairs Minister has stated, that India too has views on human rights situation in the USA, it must protect its interests, and not remain perpetually on the defensive.